So today this really interesting thing happened when we were all painting at the painting table, and I noticed that they're getting really into, having their name written on their paper, and that they've been into sort of drawing before they paint a little bit, and but the names got pretty big. But then they started writing their own names, which was great, and then Merrick started writing on Olivia's paper, and Cormac was noticing this happen, and he was going, "No, no, no!" He was sort of, standing up for Olivia a little bit, and in my mind, I just remember that I had seen him doing that before. Not necessarily for other kids yet, but I've seen him doing it when kids are building towers that are too high, too high, too high, and that sort of thing. So it was, I think that he's sort of, figuring out how to advocate for himself and other people with all this new language that he has.
Yeah, I was just gonna say as well that because he seems to have this explosion of verbal skills, that he's really seeing how it fits into what kind of power he can play, and it sounds like he's really doing that advocating piece, which goes back to our anti-bias curriculum goals of where he can voice what he feels strongly for, whether it is a tower being too tall, but he feels it's a little unsafe, and he's just sort of going by the rules in a way, and he's really seeing his impact on how that will influence a situation.
Yeah.
And I was kind of wondering, does he do this at home, and what sort of advocating does he do for himself or for his sister, or how that comes out to his parents, and what it sounds like, if it's similar to him yelling out no's or I wants, or maybe he's sticking up for Caitlin from his parents.
Right. I think one reason I was able to notice this too is just that sort of the way that we are so comfortable with conflict in our classroom, that when kids are arguing, we are often able, not in every situation, but in many situations, we're able to let the conflict, continue to a reasonable point in time. We don't feel like we have to jump in right away.
Right, and I think it helps that our environment is set up in, we have a small classroom for one, but the way we have our environment set up, it invites conflict to a certain degree. But like you said, we're so comfortable with it that we see it as an opportunity to really support our values of what we want the children to leave us with.
Well, and also we didn't limit how many kids were sitting around the table.
Yeah, and it was just more of okay, let's make a little bit more space, and reminding them that this is a small space, but you're doing it, and reminding them that they are able to be capable of these things.
Right. What do you think is inspiring in that moment?
Well, what I would like to do is really just emphasize that we see conflict as a learning opportunity, and that it's important for us to remember as teachers that this is the kids' space, and that we share with them, and that we're all in this together, and that and for us teachers, we need to really step back and just be there to guide them through their conflicts, rather than getting stressed out about a situation because it's getting too noisy, or because a kid is raising their fist to hit someone, but really help them work it out and give them the language to show them a different way, rather than stopping another way.
Well, one thing you and I talk a lot about is the role that we choose to take on.
Right.
So there's all these different roles we could take on in any given situation, and depending on how well we know the kid and the scenario, we sort of choose which role we're going to decide to be in that moment, in every moment, really.
Yeah, and those roles keep changing, but they always go back to supporting our values for the children and how we see the child. Seeing them as capable, competent creatures, then we can take on a role that that capitalizes on their strengths
Right.
and help them grow within these conflict opportunities.
Let me stop